Hey, what's going on? This is Ricardo with the Code 7 Podcast Network, and we are about to get started with the DRT, the Dispatchers Roundtable, and this is going to be round 40. But first, I'm going to go ahead and throw in a countdown so we can get a few things here situated, and then we're going to jump right in. Oh, yeah. I think that's what I need to do from now on with the DRT until I end up getting that official intro put together. I always mention that I'm going to have that intro put in, but the way I want to put it together because the graphics have that I put out there, whatever round it might be, it has those boxing gloves that are black and gold. I'm going to animate those to have them go through almost like a little homage to Rocky 4. I believe that's the one where they've got the gloves that are coming in and then they smash. I wanna do something like that. Love those Rocky movies. End up putting the intro. It'll be interesting, but either way, welcome, everyone. Welcome back to the DRT, and it is round 40. Oh, man. I can't believe that there's 40 rounds of this. When I first started this, the very first version was actually part of the Within the Trenches podcast. It's the flagship show for everything that I do, where all of this that I do comes from. And I believe it was episode 43, which is the very first version back in 2014. Yeah, it was a long time ago. And it went well. However, the internet wasn't as fast as it is now. Luckily, the one person that I had two people on there with me as part of the panel. One person's internet was not good at all. The other person's internet was just good enough, and we were able to do it, but it took years up until what, 2020 or 2019? No, 2020. It says so right there on the logo, established 2020. The internet and everything was good to go, and here we are, and we've got 40 rounds in, and I am excited today. This live broadcast is sponsored by InDigital as well as Prepared, and in this broadcast, we are going to be doing a live Q&A, and that is with some folks with Prepared, and they're also going to be giving us a preview of their new HorAIzons event that it's coming June 20th. And we've got a lot of stuff to cover. So we're going to go ahead and jump right in because we've been posting a lot of different things. And a big shout out to Prepared as well for being a Social Media Plus sponsor, not only for May, but back in March. And there have been a lot of questions that people have been asking. So for those of you who are watching and listening, whether you're watching this now live or you end up watching it in the replay on demand on your time, throw in some questions into the comments that you might have, and they will most likely see them. They will answer them. Every one of those that we've put out there have been a lot of different comments, a lot of different questions, and Prepared has been very good in jumping in there and answering a lot of those questions for you. So that is very awesome. A lot of times people will end up posting something out there and nobody responds to some of the comments that are there, but they have been there every single time responding to those comments. So if you have any questions or anything like that, or even just simply a comment, throw those in the comments here because we are currently live on Facebook, as well as LinkedIn Live, YouTube, X, and Instagram. So we're going to get to that here. I've got two guests with me here today for this broadcast, round 40, the Dispatchers Roundtable, and the first guest that I'm going to bring up is Josh Keeler, and he is the marketing lead with Prepared.
How's it going, Ricardo? Thanks so much for having us.
What is up, man? Things are well. Things are very well. It is super hot in this room. I'll just say that right off the bat. I don't know why the AC doesn't come into this room as well as everywhere else. So it is very toasty. I hope you are comfortable wherever you're at.
I can empathize. I've got my window AC unit is actually right next to my desk, so I kind of have to manage that either too cold or too hot pretty much at all times. So
it sounds like a dispatch center. It's either too cold or it's too hot. So
I've heard.
Yeah, man. So you are living it. And my next guest with prepared as well is Keshav. How's it going, sir?
It's going well, Ricardo. Thank you so much for having me. Excited to be here.
Oh, I'm excited to have you both on here because there are a lot of different questions, and with a bunch of different companies as well as yourselves, I always tell people, man, I get a little jealous. And the reason I say I get a little jealous is because all of this great technology is out there in 911 now. I don't get to use it. So that's where the jealousy comes from because I don't get to use it. But yeah, who knows? I might jump back in on a part-time basis just to try it or just to go and experience it in different places. Because when I was in dispatch, a lot of this technology was not there. So for me, it's really cool to be able to have you guys on and talk about a lot of this as well. Because there's been a lot of questions, there's been a lot of different things, and Josh, when you and I were talking about how, or even just what this event was going to entail, or this broadcast rather, um, was mostly, let's do like a live Q&A and just give kind of a preview on what you guys are going to be doing next. So just to jump right in, Josh, let's go ahead and start with you. What kind of pushed you towards public safety? It sounds like there's a public safety presence for one of you. Go ahead, Josh.
I think that might be Keshav.
Yeah.
It could easily be me very soon. Yeah, on my end, when I graduated college, I really was looking for an industry and a role in which I could make an impact on individuals and people and communities in a positive way. And fortunately, one of my friends, who's now my boss, CEO Michael Chime, started this company when he was a junior in college, and I saw it as an opportunity to contribute to really in a space where it seemed like 911 was not getting the recognition it deserved nationwide, and in conversations that it should have been in rooms that 911 should be in. And that was evident to me before I joined and immediately after I joined, and pretty much from the moment I jumped on board, have been enamored with the 911 community, and stewards like Roxy Van Gundy and Sarah Weston and you quickly kind of showed me the ropes as far as what this community is all about and what these people are all about, and that's doing good. And when you think about it that way, it's pretty hard to not want to do the best work for these folks and arm them with the best technology possible in a way that, as we always talk about, fits within their workflow and achieves things they're actually looking for, not just things that we want to throw into the comm center. And so for the rest of my life, I'll be an advocate for 911, and I'm happy to be one in this role right now.
It's so that is awesome to hear, and it's also a testament to whatever it is that is in the 911 space that just really gets into your blood. I think it's that that feeling of just simply service, just helping others, but also like for you guys being able to create and put a service out there that helps those within the trenches of 911, but also that will ultimately help those in the community and others out there in the field.
Definitely, yeah. It's I remember going to my first Nina and just that's where you and I first met, and just seeing this entire space kind of on display in that setting was overwhelming in the best way, and it really helps connect and put a face to everything that's going on, because 911 callers, they're not getting a face, they're just getting a voice, the calm and the chaos. So it's cool to be on the other side and put faces to these voices and these people doing good and in their communities as the unsung heroes of public safety. So
love it. Keshav, how about yourself? How did you get into or start getting pushed towards the public safety space?
Yeah, and apologies if you hear ambulance sounds. I live very close to Mount Sinai in New York City.
Oh, no, it's fine.
If you ever hear that, I apologize. For me, so my background is in product management. And specifically, I was building products in the B2B SaaS ecosystem prior to joining Prepared, where the end users were other software engineers. And I really enjoyed like the idea of taking something abstract and building a product business around it, and doing it in such a way that we're able to solve real people problems. But after doing that for like about 8-ish years or so, you quickly realize that something is missing. And the way it manifested for me was I started to feel a lot of the Monday blues. And I was like, well, the problem doesn't actually excite me as much as like what excited me in that ecosystem, the B2B SaaS ecosystem, was just taking ideas and bringing it to market. That was exciting. But the overarching problem was was good, but and there's something missing. And then, fortunately, about 2.5 years ago, I got a call from the CEO of this company, Michael Chime, saying, "Hey, we are looking to hire our first head of product, and really liked your background. We were really new, brand new company. You'll be one of the early, seventh employee or so, and we have a really compelling mission." And when he mentioned to me the promise of what Prepared was trying to bring to the ecosystem, which was providing dispatchers, call takers, and responders with instant eyes on scene, that immediately resonated with me. And I'll tell you why, like really small nugget. When I first, prior to moving to New York City, I was living in Boston before this. I was, finding the right neighborhood for me to live in. And I had was in the Upper West Side, and I was in one of the hotels there. And we unfortunately we got there are people shooting at us like randomly on in New York City. There was like a stray bullet pretty much, and I witnessed that happening, and I witnessed firsthand how call takers and dispatchers in the city, in addition to the police officers, went above and beyond to make sure nothing happened to us, but also secured the scene, tried to address the issue as quickly as possible. And I also witnessed how the lack of that information that they could have gotten, like for example, bullet casings, where it was, the location, all of those things, the absence of that increased the time it took for them to come to the scene, increased the time it took to address that emergency. So that mission of what Prepared was trying to accomplish really resonated with me. And so that kind of propelled me to take this chance and join Prepared and do everything I can to build a product that is valuable for the public safety ecosystem. And I have never been more happier.
Wow. I was not expecting that. That is, that's awesome. There's not that you were in that situation. That I'll make that clear. Not that you were in that situation, but the fact that, that was, kind of, that inspiration, how interesting that something like that happened. And how I just have to ask really quick, because I always look for a correlation in a lot of people's stories, their experiences, and what comes next in life. And for you, you had this happen. How much time in between was that from that incident to the time that you were contacted by Michael Chime, and then this whole opportunity comes up?
3 months.
Yeah. So again, how interesting that you went through that. And then 3 months later, you get this call, and you're like, you know what? I'm down with this, because you experienced that. And again, that was that inspiration that, I don't know about you and others who are watching and listening, but I am a firm believer that sometimes things are they're meant to happen a certain way. And look at that, 3 months later, you end up getting this call, and now you're working for this company and doing all of these different things. So there's definitely a connection there. There's a correlation on a few of those things. So awesome. I'm glad to have you both here and to hear that little bit, from the both of you. Now let's jump into some of this here. As we're looking towards, the company, why did Prepare decide, really to focus on the assistive 911 technology, really being that piece that's working in parallel with dispatch, not the fact that it's taking anything over, but working in parallel, and also the approach to building, AIs as a part of this.
Yeah, happy to address this question. So Ricardo, just so that I'm clear, is a question how did we decide to go focus more on assistive technology, moving from, let's say, next gen media technologies? That
you got it correct? Yes.
Yeah, I would say Prepared's journey has started in that next gen media world, and we essentially operated on the core premise that 911 would find value in getting instant eyes on scene in order to inform them on how to proceed with the response from there. And we got a lot of adoption, over 15% of all of the country adopted Prepared's next gen media services, some form of the next gen media services, and have been increasing the amount of incident related imagery data points that is being collected. But as we were going through and working with these accounts and talking to all of our PSAP partners, our dispatchers, our call takers, our supervisors, we learned of something very interesting. We would ask everyone, one of the things we would do is we'd say, hey, how valuable is incident related imagery? And all of them would say it's amazing. We love the fact that we can get next gen media right now. And then we'd ask them, well, why don't you collect it on every single call? And their immediate response was, well, we would love to. We just have such a huge staffing crisis right now that we are overwhelmed with so many 911 calls that we are not able to do all of these other, we're not able to collect all of this other rich information that could better inform our dispatching and our response. And so that led us to ask ourselves the question, which is, hey, ultimately our goal is to like build a product that is so valuable that we can increase the likelihood of saving as many people's lives as possible while improving productivity for all the people involved in the public safety ecosystem. And when we ask ourselves this question, we started to see, well, how can technology actually help us get to this outcome faster, given the staffing crisis, given that they are overwhelmed with so many calls, so much new data that's coming in that people are unable to like process that quickly. And so we then went to the drawing board and asked ourselves, how can we incorporate technology like AI? Now, very quickly, what we learned through this process is like AI is, in a lot of ways, what makes human beings so fascinating compared to, let's say, other species, if you will, is our ability to like perform is our ability to like reason. Logical reasoning and intuition are unique traits among humans that no system can replace. Mm-hmm. Now, usually though, logical reasoning and intuition shines when there's enough time for you to process information. You'll notice yourself as well. When you're like overwhelmed, when you have like a time crunch, your logical reasoning doesn't actually like shine. Your intuition doesn't have the time to shine. And so AI becomes a tool in a world where time is of the essence. AI becomes a tool for dispatchers, call takers, responders, and supervisors to parse and process voluminous amounts of information and display that in a way that makes sense to our call taking counterparts, so that their ability to like reason, their ability to like make quick decisions, their ability to like focus on the human side of public safety can shine through. And that has always been our approach to innovation here, is how do we assist all of our individual public safety counterparts to have their critical reasoning abilities and their intuition shine in moments of crisis.
So how important was it in the beginning, especially when going or taking this approach rather in building of the AI, to have the input of whether it be, the straight front line, those answering all of those calls, or, supervisors, directors, CTOs, trainers, or anything like that? How important were those conversations when going into starting to build this out?
Yeah, good question. In a lot of ways, I'd say like in the product and in let's say in Prepared's R&D team, which is the product management team, I would say, one of our core mandates is to be obsessed with end user dissatisfaction. What I mean by that is like we are constantly asking ourselves, hey, if our end objective is to like save as many people's lives as possible and bring a peace of mind and improved productivity for all of the people involved in public safety, what's missing right now? Forget our product. Just in general, if they're going from A to B, what's missing? What causes an increase in stress? What causes an increase in time? And what causes an increase in effort? So we always work backwards from there. Then once we work backwards from there, we form hypotheses. We form like questions on like, well, it might be due to this reason. It might be, for example, due to the fact that non-English calls could take up could increase the likelihood of the response taking 10 times longer. Those are all hypotheses. And then from there, once we form a hypothesis, we go in and do what is called research. Every week, we try to talk to as many end users as possible, be it in call taking, be it in shift supervising, be it in QA, and just literally ask them, hey, if this is your end user outcome, what's missing? Forget Prepared exists. How do you go from A to B and what's missing? And we pride ourselves, Prepared prides itself on being a very customer-centric company in the sense that we don't want to form any assumptions for you. We want to partner with you. We want to deeply understand your workflow, and we want to build solutions in such a way that you're not battling the tool. The tool is not overwhelming you. The tool is almost ambient, if you will, and it's helping you get to the outcome as quickly as possible while optimizing for your peace of mind. So talking to as many people as possible every week. And internally in the R&D teams, we call this continuous discovery, where we want to continuously discover new problems and new ideas for us to like innovate around.
And I think with 911 as well, there's so many different things that happen that there is a way to constantly evolve and adapt, because those who don't evolve and adapt, those are the ones that disappear. And so I dig that you guys are able to do that, and having that approach, and also users. Now, Josh, for you, um, there's a lot of folks that you've spoken to that what are some quotes, or maybe even use cases, or whichever that you know of, that go along with this as well.
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, I kind of am able to enter the process after Keshav has done all the hard work, and then we just get to have the fun part where I hear Keshav built all the features based on the feedback, and I get to collect the kind of post-user feedback when the solution is already in use and they're experiencing success with the solution. So that's the fun part for me, when I get to interact with our customers, and how on our marketing side of things, we still get to be very customer obsessed, customer centric, and how we go about sharing our stories, and hopefully shedding a positive light on 911. I always go back to Roxy. She told me if she could have her dream job would be just to rent a bus, deck it out, and just drive around the country and be a cheerleader for 911. And that's always in the back of my mind as we get to share these stories. But yeah, we've had some really, really cool ones recently with our assistive AI features, things like translation. We had a voice translation call, and I believe it was Ukrainian recently in Minnesota. And they used Translate to determine the help that was needed. So before even bringing in a third-party interpreter, use the voice translation through Prepared Assist, and then transfer it to a third-party translator or interpreter. After that, there was another foreign language call. They didn't have the specific language, but essentially initially thought it might be a medical case based on what was being said, but could tell through the translated transcript that it was someone just calling to make a doctor's appointment. And so they were able to not send or create a call for EMD. They were about to create a call for EMD, and essentially were able to log it as dispatch assist and said canceled sending the EMD. And that's all because they have the assistance of that translation and the transcript on their heads-up display right there. Obviously, as I'm sure you will know, non-English calls in 911 and in public safety can be a bit of an albatross, and especially can be tough on the caller side. And we obviously want to make it life easier on the caller, knowing they can communicate in their preferred language, and make it easier on the telecommunicator, who can also communicate now in their preferred language with 19 languages translated over voice and over 140 over text. So you use the voice translation, hopefully discover that language, then use the text to communicate back. And then if you need, you can still bring in that third party service. So those are some recent success stories we've had on the translation side, which have been super exciting.
See, and that is awesome to hear as well. And you can see my eyebrows just like popping up, like this is cool, man. This is cool stuff. And as we're going through this as well, for either one of you, kind of mentioned already a few of these, but some of these core benefits, really, on this, what you offer.
Absolutely. The way, and Josh, feel free to chime in here. The way we've always thought about benefits is instead of thinking about it holistically across the platform, let's focus on the individuals involved in public safety in the equation. And at a high level, it would be the call taking process, it would be the dispatching process, and then it would be, let's say, the supervisory oversight, the review stuff, where like you're training people, you're coaching them, you're providing feedback, and you're building trust. And then finally, there's response. So across these different verticals, if you will, or personas, we think about benefits for, let's say, for call taking. It would be, how can we ensure call takers can talk to as many people as possible, be it if they are, if let's say they have any sort of disabilities, if they have any sort of issues with the English language. How can we ensure that they're able to take as many calls as quickly as possible? And they're doing so in a way in which they're able to get rich insights with little effort. So reducing things like call taking effort, reducing the typing effort required to extract that information are all key benefits we provide for call takers. When it comes to dispatching, we ask ourselves the question, what can Prepared do to improve dispatching efficiency? How can you get the right information really quickly and pass it along to the people on the field to go in and address that emergency. So things around like call summarization, highlighting of key insights like gunshots, medical-based information. If there was like other suspect descriptions, all of those things get highlighted quickly so that, again, you can take that information, pass it along to the field, and do so in a way that is like non-intrusive. All of this, of course, needs to be backed up by good data. So we provide really good location from multiple different sources, again, visualized in a way that makes sense for the call taker and the dispatcher. And then finally, as a supervisor, you want to be able to get, let's say, full visibility into what's happening on the floor from wherever. Maybe you're on the field, maybe you're doing something where you're outside of the dispatch center, or maybe you're in the dispatch center, but your dispatchers and call takers are taking so many calls. How can you get alerted to the right calls quickly, find the right information, and either give people the kudos that they deserve for doing such an amazing job, or provide good, rich feedback to build that trust and help call takers and dispatchers shine in their respective jobs. So that's kind of like at a high level how we've thought about architecting the product to enable the outcomes that all of these individuals in public safety deeply care about.
See, and this is good to hear as well, because I think a lot of people, and a lot of stuff that I've seen even recently, or from the last time that we had back in March when we had round 39. I think or 38, I don't know, they're all meshing together, but either way, I think one of the things that is out there is that a lot of people have kind of these, I guess, different thoughts on what's going to happen, like, to them. Some folks are thinking, am I going to get replaced or whatever? And others are like, no, the human piece needs to stay there. And I think one of the things to continue to hammer in is that this is something to work in parallel, almost like sitting on your shoulder, in a sense where you're being assisted with certain things, that it's not going to be taking over anything like that. And, so this is good. This is good to have that out there, but also clear up some of these misconceptions. So, also, you're so I mean, just so that people know, so you're like a complete type of suite almost, right? It's not just video to 911 anymore. There's, as you said, moving towards assistive 911 technology, where you've got the transcriptions, you've got translations, you've got text from 911, right? Am I missing anything? Is there like analytics, or all of this to be able to assist those in 911 on the front line?
Yeah, there's a whole suite of features that we've built for different personas or different people involved. So from the call taking side, for example, we have AI assisted transcription, AI assisted like summarization of the call for identifying key insights, the ability to like get instant related imagery, something which is our bread and butter, but we've continuously enhanced that. The ability to like get location from multiple sources in order to ensure that you're finding, you're validating where the caller is or where the scene of the emergency is quickly. In addition, we have dispatching features too. So for the ability to share all of this information that is collected by call takers into the right channels where responders are sitting in. And then finally, from a supervisory side, we have analytics. We have the ability to notify different supervisors key calls of interest. So let's say a police chief might care about active shooter or gun related calls, versus let's say someone in the city council potentially might care about calls where there's like mental health or behavioral health issues depending on the jurisdiction. So those are all things where we allow you to like get those alerts, but more importantly, once you get the alerts, visualize all of them in a dashboard that makes sense, so you can you can find that information meaningfully and report on them to the right individuals. So,
and I would add to
go
that,
ahead,
Ricardo, if you don't mind. I think
go ahead.
had a recent example, an unfortunate example that kind of displayed at every level, each persona, some of the benefits of the platform. So unfortunately in Pennsylvania, there was a workplace shooting. As you well know, having been in the comm center, a lot of these type of incidents create a high volume of calls about one specific incident. And so the center started to receive, I think it was 10 plus calls on this one specific incident. And so from the call taker's perspective, what the AI insights and transcription was able to pick up and help verify was a suspect description, accurate suspect description pulled out from the transcript, the suspect names on scene of the workplace, the vehicle type, of the suspect and the tag, all pulled out and recognized via HorAIzons on the call taker's side. Then on the dispatch side, they had that summary there with all of those insights pulled out for them. And then going to the supervisor level, we talked about how, as you may know, with CAD summaries, they can get 4 to 5 pages long, and you're looking at all this different information. But with our supervisor view, what the supervisor is able to do is simply click one call at a time inside their view and see the AI summary right there. And so they can get this overarching quick view of exactly what's happening as these calls are ongoing with AI summary, instead of parsing through 4 to 5 pages of information. And then even taking one step further, when you look at after action and even kind of during action, a lot of times you'll have detectives on scene or officers asking for 911 call audio, and it might not be easily accessible, difficult to share, unclear. What you're able to do with our platform is essentially create a printout with the audio transcripts as well as the AI summary. And so they were on scene. They have a tactical deployment mobile comm center on scene, printing out these summaries to give right to detectives for after action. Much easier after action with summaries and information. So you see at every single level of the response in this tragic incident, where from the call taker to the dispatcher, the supervisor, to even to the law enforcement after action investigation side of things, where it's just speeding up the dissemination of information, verifying the accuracy, and ensuring that the processes are going, as you'd want them to go.
See, and that is excellent as well, especially with the ability to have that information as fast as possible, because in 911 in general, you need the information as fast as possible, but also we've been in this age now for a while where, everything is right at our fingertips and we want everything that fast. So that is a good thing. Now, looking over here at Instagram, I've got a couple questions. So the first one here says, has AI been more accepted by 911 or field responders?
Yeah, it's great.
One says yes, the other one's like,
it's an interesting question. Case, you want to take that?
Yeah, I'll take a first stab at it.
Yeah.
I think with any technology, I think there's a healthy amount of skepticism that everyone should have. And I think we should all encourage healthy skepticism, because ultimately you want technology to work for you, not against you. And you want technology to you don't want to get in a scenario where you're battling the tools that you've been provided. So I do think, specifically though, when I think about AI and acceptance of AI, I think there's two aspects of it. One is there's a perception and different people have different perceptions of what AI can do. And then there's the actual ground truth of what AI is actually able to do over there. And I think fundamentally, 911 and public safety will always remain one of the industries where the human element is absolutely critical to get the outcome. In your most vulnerable moments, I can speak at least for myself, I want to talk to a human, period. I want to get the trust, I want to get the reassurance, the comfort, and I want to get the guidance that a human can provide through their intuition, through their lived experience, through their logical reasoning abilities, and through their bias towards action. That is something which no AI system can do. And I think that's the perception that Prepared at least wants to continue to convey in the market, which is AI is fundamentally going to be built for public safety in such a way that we are going to be assisting you in order to parse all of this information. There's an information overload right now in public safety. You have security cam footage coming in. You have location from different sources. You have audio coming in. You have text and on. There's so much information. And guess what? You have to parse that in 2 minutes. It's so much. And so what we want to do is we want to provide, the system should be architected in such a way that the human there is able to identify the most important piece of information and reason and understand how to act on that information while building that trust with the community and for working with responders to address that emergency. So very bluntly, I've been very surprised in a good way how receptive public safety has been towards AI. And I think everyone is seeing a good chunk of the market is at least seeing the potential benefits, even with that healthy skepticism that they're having.
I like that. What about you, Josh?
I think from the company perspective too, to add on to that, we want to be very proactive in our messaging and saying that this isn't to replace you. This is just to help you. And I think our goal in being proactive in that conversation is changing any stigma that might be around it. And as Keshav mentioned, I've also been pleasantly surprised with the acceptance and adoption. And I think part of that probably has to do with the rapid rise of use in the consumer space. I think, so many telecommunicators, probably all three people on this call, are using tools like ChatGPT in our personal lives. So once you kind of see the power of those types of tools in your personal life, and then hopefully you understand our goal as a company is not as a replacement, but as an assistive tool, it removes some of that skepticism much quicker. And we want to be thought leaders in that space. We want to generate conversations around what thoughtful introduction of AI into the public safety space looks like. Not here's AI, run with it, do whatever you want with it, or we are just going to introduce it without thinking. We want to introduce this very thoughtfully in a way that fits your process, fits your workflow. Because as Keshav said, there's already tons of things that are being thrown at you from a data perspective, from a calls perspective, in an era where many centers are understaffed. So I've been pleasantly surprised with the positive reception from 911. Can't speak to as much on the responder side, to be honest, but I think it's been a broadly good reception. I mean, you might have attended. We did a webinar on AI, a panel with Halcyon Frank, with Ashley Valenzuela from Raspy Dispatcher, and with Brad Flanagan from Pitkin County. And we sent out a survey during that webinar, a couple different surveys about like, hey, why are you here? Do you use AI in your personal life? Would you, adopt AI in the center? And a lot of the answers hovered in this range of like 70-30 to 50-50, like somewhere in that kind of broad space. So there's definitely some skepticism there. It exists. I think it's our job to communicate that for anyone that might be skeptical, we're being very thoughtful about it, and it's meant to assist you.
Have some of the I guess those who are on the other side or on the fence, has it really just been in the sense of, because people are thinking like it might replace them in a certain way? Like, have you heard those types of things? I and the only reason I ask is only because I've seen just like comments, really, like people are just, it's going to replace us, I'm not going to have a job anymore. I'm like, no, you're not going to get replaced. Like, that's not the way it's going to work, because as the both of you have said, as I have said, and other things that I've seen, is especially in 911, you need that human element. I mean, when I very first started in dispatch back in 2001, my very first trainer, those three things he told me that I needed to be able to do this job, to be in this profession, was to have thick skin, common sense, and be human. You got to be human. So I guess, what are some of the thoughts, I guess, as we're kind of talking about that survey, some of those who have been on the other side, like, were there any explanations, or is it just simply, do you think, because people don't like change or the fear of the unknown?
Yeah, I can jump in and take this, actually, Ricardo. As you mentioned earlier in the call, we try and be very proactive about responding to comments on social media, on the posts, answering questions. And as the marketing person, for those who don't know, it's my face behind many of those posts. And so I've definitely been on the front lines of seeing a lot of these responses. And to be very honest, what I've sensed from an AI perspective, comparing and juxtaposing with what I saw from a video perspective, when we were really focused on next generation media, with video, there was a true resistance. And it is very logical in many ways. Mm-hmm. That said, it also was based on a lot of misconceptions about video. I don't want the caller to be able to see me. With our platform, the caller can't see you. I don't want to see all of these different things where you can use the blur functionality and you don't have to use video on every call. So that was a somewhat frustrating thing, where I try to be very proactive in answering video questions and saying, hey, I totally understand. Like, if I was in your shoes, I'm sure I would feel very similarly, but here are the ways in which we're hoping to solve those challenges. With the AI comments, the questions, and the attitudes, I would almost describe it as there isn't so much concern, because there's a confidence in the comments that says a human has to be part of 911. There's no fear, almost, in a certain way. And we completely agree with that lack of fear, because we do need you, period, end of story. And so it's funny, the difference from the video comments. It was like definitely a lot of times a rejection or a fear around video that in many cases was valid, but also in many cases based on certain misconceptions. With AI, it's very steadfast, very confident. 911 needs telecommunicators. 911 needs the human touch. And from our perspective, there's no disagreement in that comment. We're as confident as you are that we need you in this process, and we're also as confident that we believe we can help you. Right. Period. I think that's the bridge that we're trying to create, is like, we're on the same page. We need you. and we believe we can help you, and we believe we can do that in very real ways. I mean, another example would be a director earlier this week told me he believed from the perspective of being able to do real-time QA. The supervisor can watch what's going on in these calls from any different room in the comm center, to be on the floor. And so they're able to, essentially the quote was, if you catch a mistake real time, it's not a mistake. And another director said, you're catching errors before they're errors. So you're avoiding those, and the director later said to me, it definitely reduces liability. That was his belief. And so that's something we want to share, like, we don't believe it can replace you, but hey, here's an example of something we believe it can help you and assist. So I guess to sum it all up, yeah, there's not so much a fear, or maybe there's some skepticism, but it's more a confidence. Like 911 needs me, and we agree 911 needs you, and we just want to help you.
Excellent. So another question here from Instagram. Let me scroll up here really quick. So the other question here, as I said on Instagram, it says, how do you overcome multi-agency / county dispatch centers that have several agencies that don't necessarily share the same operational goals?
Yeah, that's a great question. I wonder if the questioner is asking about, and Ricardo, maybe you can help me out here. I wonder if the questioner is asking about how does AI work when the goals of, let's say, your sister agencies or agencies that you collaborate with could be different. Is that a fair assessment of how that question is?
I think that's pretty close. The other thing that I was thinking as well is, let's just say, for example, when I was still working within digital, I was the one who's working on all of their text for 911 stuff. And what we saw was that, there would be, one agency where, like, some of the agencies around, not in Indiana, of course, because Indiana, it's statewide. So it's not so much like that. But in other places, it was more so like, one agency had text for 911, but another one didn't. So now how are we going to overcome that? How are we going to overcome that piece? Or, like, in the beginning, the way it was if you had an over the top type, and for those who are watching and listening that don't know what I mean, is basically let's just say like a browser based, and someone had it that was built into their phone system, and it was on a different, let's just say, platform. You weren't able to transfer. There wasn't a way to connect during that time. So how are you overcoming those challenges, those operational goals, those operational challenges? How are you working together to be able to do that? And at least within digital, there were different ways that we could make that work, where people were able to end up eventually transferring over, or even in the sense of having to call, and say, we've got this that's going on over text. We can't transfer it to you, but we're connecting this way. So in that sense, for, other places that might not be using Prepared or have those same operational goals, how do you overcome some of those things, but also in the sense that you said it as well?
Yeah, so good question. So maybe I can talk a little bit about, let's say, product principles that we've adopted to help address that specific question. And then also talk a little bit about, from a company perspective, what are we doing to ensure interoperability and good partnerships with other public safety counterparts here.
Yes.
So specifically from a product principles perspective, interoperability is enshrined in how we think about architecting and developing our system. So what this means is, when we think about, let's say, a new feature, a great example is text to 911 you brought up. We currently support text to 911, and we built it in such a way that you can now transfer this not only between prepared to prepared, but also fundamentally you can transfer this to any other agency that is willing to accept this. So for example, we have a really good relationship with InDigital to send these text to 911 incidents to products like Texty, for example. And we have active centers using workflows like that. And our goal there is to make sure that you're never battling the tool. For cases where you have to collaborate with other agencies, where you have to work with your CAD vendor to get the information prepared as parsing and pushing it in. That's been our philosophy from day one, and we've architected the system for that. And we have open APIs that we support to help foster this relationship with, like, deeper, rich integrations with some of our partners. And you will actually see some of these partners talk about themselves in our upcoming HorAIzons webinar as well. So be on the lookout for that. Super excited about that. Then now from let's say from a company perspective, we actually have a dedicated partnerships manager who is leading the charge on building those relationships with other companies so that from an R&D side, we can have a seamless integration across those different products, be it call handling systems, computer-aided dispatch systems, logging recorders, you name it. Prepared wants to essentially lead the way, if you will, on interoperability and think of all and work with some of these other innovative vendors in the space to get to that outcome as quickly as possible. And the last thing I would add to this is from a very strategic perspective, we have intentionally taken the approach of like being an over-the-top solution and like allowing ourselves to embed into a center without them having to rip and replace existing systems. And we made an intentional decision to get to that outcome. We do not want people to feel like, well, if I have to use Prepared, I have to go through like a 4-year-long procurement process, rip out all of my IT systems to get to the benefit of like an assistant that is focused on bringing you peace of mind and sits with every single dispatcher or call taker. We wanted to instead build a product in such a way that it's plug and play. You can use this in whatever workflow you want without having to go through like a really rigorous IT setup process, because it's fully delivered over the top. It's been cloud native from day one, and it's built with usability in mind. So that's like a high level overview of how we've been thinking about this.
I like that because when I was working within digital, I think the longest implementation we had when doing this, especially if something had gone down and they needed texting, like we were able to do it with. We would say, does anybody have a laptop there? Like we can do it in like minutes, but like the most it was, like 2 weeks for implementation and getting a bunch of different stuff if it was a bigger center. So that's, I really dig that. And Josh, I saw you come off mute. I feel like you've got something to add to it. Go ahead.
As I've been trying to do today, I'm trying to back up one of the things Kesh is saying with a use case example.
Mhm.
And so I think this may be a really specific example of what hopefully the question was kind of getting after: collaboration between agencies. So we have an agency chat feature that essentially enables call takers, dispatchers to send out mass notifications to large groups of responders, other agencies, things like that. And so I'll just read what this one director sent us. So at approximately 17:59 hours on May 18th, an officer was stabbed multiple times by a prisoner, and 2 officers were transporting from the hospital back to the station. As you can imagine, the initial call for assistance was chaotic, and our member police department needed additional officers to secure the scene and respond to other calls for service. Within minutes of the emergency, a text message was sent to officers to notify dispatch they were either at the station awaiting assignment or en route. The message was sent without delay. They hadn't had a chance to do a notification test after setting up the group contacts. So it was the first time they were using it live, this agency chat feature. They said the system was much faster than using CAD text notification or pulling up one of their other systems and going through all those steps, and obviously much faster than making individual phone calls. Later, we were able to also use the same system, our system, to let all the personnel know that the condition of the injured officer was stable. So essentially, you have this officer being stabbed, and you're able to send a notification for mutual aid, essentially, to have other officers cover both this incident and then cover other incidents that are needed because that incident is being covered through our agency chat feature, and used it live. So that's some collaboration across agencies using that feature, which is a great success.
That is awesome. And before we get into like the next section here, or we're kind of focusing a little bit on that transcription piece, and then of course talking about New Horizons and all. There's one more question in here on Instagram that I want to make sure, because it kind of goes along with what we're talking about here a bit. And so the question here says, how do you get future minded versus old school chiefs who share a dispatch center? Like how do you get them to kind of come together on this as well? Because like we've been saying, not everybody likes change. There's the fear of the unknown, there's skepticism, there's all of this stuff that gets into it. So I guess in your experiences from the both of you, and what you've heard, or any of the centers that you work with, and Josh, maybe you have a quote on this as well, but how do you get some of these future minded folks versus some of the old school to kind of come together on a lot of this stuff?
I think
Those who share a center, that is.
Yeah. I think the big focus for us, what we want to do is come in and show value as quickly as possible, because that is the best thing to reduce skepticism.
Mm-hmm.
We can throw around gaudy promises and big words and and hopeful statements all day. But when the rubber hits the road, is the product working? Is it helping people? And that's what we've tried to show today as part of, backing up what Keshav has talked about on the product side. Here's examples of that. And usually that is what it takes, is you come in, maybe one side, maybe even it's a call taker, dispatcher, one person in the center becomes a power user. They're like, oh, wait, what's going on over there? And then you have these successful use cases, and all of a sudden the chief, fire chief, police chief is like, hang on, what's this thing I keep hearing about, over the radio? I got a video from Prepared, or there's this summary of the incident, or this printout. And then the moment you have that one successful incident, the light bulb clicks on, and that skepticism is just greatly reduced. So that's kind of been our approach, is approaching it by showing success, because that's the best way to disprove skepticism. In a lot of cases, you will not be able to do it unless you show that success. And fortunately, the product has time and time again shown really, really quickly that it can do that and convert even the biggest skeptics that we have. So it's been really, really cool to see.
That is excellent. So looking at transcription, because one of the posts that we put out there had to do with like note taking, and how AI can assist and pull keywords and all this other stuff. And there were questions that were put into that comment, which, as we said in the beginning, and you being the face, the one who was there, answering a lot of those things, which is awesome. And I think it's a good thing too, that a lot of people like to see that immediately you are jumping in there and you're answering some of these things, or saying, set up a time and we can talk about this, and we can show you more and answer more of those questions. So what can you tell us about the reliability and consistency of transcription?
Yeah, I'm happy to answer this. So one, from an R&D perspective, Prepared has invested heavily in ensuring that we have the latest and greatest models built in such a way that we can parse out some of the unique information that public safety servants and agents are processing, and visualize them in a way that makes sense. So from an R&D side, like, we are heavily invested on like making sure our models work as intended. What we've also done intentionally is like we've architected our system in such a way that it could be multi-model if needed. So what this means is Prepared's, let's say, foundational technological bet is saying that, hey, we believe AI, and there's going to be a lot of like big companies, including like multi-billion-dollar investments. We've already seen this from like Microsoft, Google, some of these other like large players. There's going to be huge investments in building really good cutting-edge models. So from our side, what we want to do is we want to be able to like incorporate whatever model fits the needs of the public safety individual as well as their workflow, depending on the data they're processing it, and seamlessly fitting that into our CJIS compliant cloud. That is fundamentally how we've architected our system. And why that's useful or important is saying, hey, like the models that we have for, let's say, audio-based transcription would be different for, let's say, when you're processing, adding an AI layer for processing media-related information, or when you're processing text-based information, the models could be different. Our neural network probability algorithm that we'll probably have to like tweak a little bit will be different over there. So those are like intentional decisions we have taken to like build the product. Now, specifically now coming to the ground truth of like how reliable is our transcription. The way we've always thought about transcription quality is to ensure that we are able to we can minimize the likelihood of not altering the fundamental nature of the call. And this is a very important nuance. AI is not perfect. If given, let's say, a 30-minute call and you have a human doing it, and then you have an AI system listening to it, and you're asking both of them to like transcribe the call, and you have, let's say, 2 hours to do it, 99% of the time, the human will do it way better than AI. It's always going to be the time crunch when you have like a minute to quickly like parse like a long conversation and build out key insights faster. Mm-hmm. And in that world, we are always asking ourselves, how can AI get better at like showing the transcript and showing information in the transcript in such a way that the call taker is able to find benefit and value for that. And so we intentionally, what we do is like we have hooks in the product that allows a call taker and a dispatcher to share when there's issues in the transcription, and then specifically allows them to also share when the nature of the call has been fundamentally altered. And usually, most of the times, the nature of the call is not altered. It is usually like there'll be errors sometimes due to like background noise. There could be errors like sometimes where the pronouns could be changed, for example. There could be like, little things here and there that don't fundamentally alter the nature of the call. And that is what we fundamentally aspire for as a company. And this transcription model is only going to get better. It's never going to get to 100%, but we're pretty confident it gets to like 80 to 90% right most of the times. So.
See, and this is what I wanted to be able to get out as well, because there were people who were talking and mentioning certain things, and I love as well that right away it was one of the first comment that was on the response wise was, this is not, it's AI is not always going to be, it's not going to be perfect, and I love that you're putting it out there versus being the type of the company in a way to say, no, this is going to work, this is this or that, like to a point, or in a way like shutting down whatever the person is saying and their concern and just saying, no, like this is us and this is how it's going to work. Instead, you're saying, no, we understand this. It's not always going to be great, but it's going to help as much as possible, as fast as possible when you're trying to do something. So just for example, one of the things someone had said was, and someone as a user was saying, it doesn't work well if a caller isn't speaking clearly, has an accent, etc. Because another person had posted saying, or that was a response to this other comment that said, sounds excellent for callers with clear speech. I like how it's just a tool for a telecommunicator and requires the copy paste with editing capabilities. I'd be curious to see how well it works with different levels of emotion, yelling, dialects, and accents. And that's, basically what you explained here just now, that it's not always going to be 100%. And it probably won't always be that way because there's so many other variables. But as working in parallel, it's able to assist in a way that, you really wouldn't have it before, it appears.
Absolutely. Our goal has never been to get to like 100% transcript quality. Our goal has always been, how do we ensure we're providing the right information for call takers and dispatchers so that we can bring them peace of mind and we can allow them to focus on the human a little bit more and improve their productivity in the process. So if we think about it from that perspective, our goal is not to say we're going to work towards like 100% transcript quality or whatever, because that goal is like a utopian ideal. It's never going to happen, at least this year or next year. There's so many variables that are unique to public safety that's just the nature of the equation here, which is also in a lot of ways should reinforce the need for humans and focusing on the human side of all of this. It is just an incredibly difficult job there. And instead, if we are focusing fundamentally on like, what is the state of the world before, where it was purely just you get the audio call, you have to like listen to the call, and then you're like going, if you miss something, you have to like have a back and forth. The dispatcher then has to like come in and like what did they say again? And like maybe you're like having some conversation in the background. You can minimize some of those little nuances there in order to like address the emergency much faster. And again, free up, bring you some peace of mind in a job that is incredibly difficult already.
So one of the other things that someone wrote was, but your notes don't get entered until you paste them. The dispatcher needs this info ASAP, not at the end of the call. So, when it comes to note taking and such, and everything needs to, be done as fast as possible, is there a workaround to the 2-click copy and paste? Is there, thoughts of, evolving and adapting? But also, does that process come from the users, those who have used it so much, like you end up taking that information and finding a way to evolve that process?
Yeah, there's two prongs to this question. One is like, what the way we built this is, first we wanted to just like, we've spoken to a bunch of users and they all mentioned how like it would be cool if like we could highlight key piece of information faster for them to like process the emergency. And that eventually led us to build a solution where you can quickly summarize the entire call and identify key pieces of information, like where the call is happening, whether there was like any weapons involved, medical information, vehicular information, and suspect or person of interest based descriptions there, highlighting all of those key informations. What we were pleasantly surprised by is what good reception we've had for that feature. And again, this is something we'll talk about at length in our upcoming webinar. And what the natural evolution now for this is for us to figure out, how do we seamlessly send this information, not just to the computer-aided dispatch system. There could be other systems too that could benefit from this information that we're collecting for the different users that are interacting with those systems. I can imagine a world where some of this information could be valuable for someone pulling up evidence during like the actual prosecution of the case. I can see this being valuable when potentially a field responder is driving to the emergency and they want to identify key points of information there. On a very tactical level, we're actively working with a few partners to like determine how we can best like ensure interoperability of some of this key intelligent information we're collecting and sharing that out to the field. And
very well put. Oh, go ahead.
One small thing, Ricardo, if they ever want to contact us for like giving us this feedback, we are more than happy to like get on a call. This is something that like brings me a lot of joy and brings my team as well, the product team, as well as like marketing and all of us a lot of joy, is like just interacting with users using the system and just asking them like, hey, what's missing? How can we do a better job here? And how can we ensure we're building the right things for you?
Yeah, and that's really good to hear as well, because I mean, you could be a company who is simply just like, like we don't care. Not so much that you don't care, but that you're not asking for it. But also on the same side, if you're not hearing from people, then they don't care, and that's what you don't want. You want people to be asking you these types of questions. You want them to, in a sense, try to break your product, right? In a sense, like, because then you find out, a lot of different things that they're working right, that are not working as well, and you want this feedback. Like, I would be the same way. Like, I want to know. I want to hear your questions. I want to, get your pros and cons to whatever it is in your center, how it might work or how it might not work. So then we can continue to, as I've been saying, adapt and evolve. So that is awesome. I like that you are willing to take it on, basically from all sides and hit it first, or head on rather. So this has been good. This has been excellent. And we're already past the hour, but that is all right because we have one more section that we are segueing to now. I'm glad that we went through all of this and some of these questions, having them answered, because those who are going to end up watching this as well on demand later on, and some of the clips that I end up putting out there, they're going to answer a lot of these questions that people have been having. So thank you to the both of you for being here and also answering all of these questions and being so open about what it is that you do, but more importantly, why it is that you do it. Now, you have an event that is coming up on the 20th, I believe, of this month. And I'm going to go ahead and put this link in here as well. And it's called, Josh, what is it called? I have the name here, but I want to hear it from you. What is it that you guys are doing? Tell me about this event.
Yes, this is our Q2 June 2024 product launch, New HorAIzons Discover Assistive AI for 911. Deftly led by Keshav himself, who has led this initiative and put the agenda together for the session. And really excited to share with the world 3 new features, and we'll be debuting those features alongside 3 of our partner agencies. So it's not just going to be prepared talking and speaking about our platform features. You're going to hear directly from the folks that helped us build it and are going to be using it in their agencies. We'll also be spotlighting a few of our partners, which we're really, really excited about, and just talking a little bit about our company and our journey and how we got here, and this focus of, as we've mentioned, 911 needs telecommunicators, and we think telecommunicators could use an assist, and you can't spell assist without AI. So we believe that there's great promise, and we're excited to debut some of these features. And Keshav has done an unbelievable job putting it all together. So we're really, really excited. June 20th, 1 p.m. Eastern. We'll be available on demand as well. So if you can't make it, you can still register, and you'll get the replay, right after. Feel free to join anytime, pop in your questions, and it'll be a great, great event.
Excellent. I'm excited for it as well. And Keshav, maybe this is, part that you can elaborate on a little more, but can you walk us through some of the customer feedback or process that results in the features that we see live on some of the dispatch floors, or either one of you?
Yeah, just so that I follow, Ricardo, is the question like how do we incorporate feedback from users on the field into our product development workflow? Or like specifically, how do we go on the floor of the PSAP and like incorporate their feedback?
I mean, either one works. Yeah.
Awesome. The way we think about this is every week we ask ourselves a question, which is what are the biggest unknowns currently in our roadmap for delivering value for our end users? And when we say value, it is fundamentally how do we, working backwards from our utopian objective, which is protect as many people's lives as possible. If you're working backwards from there and then thinking about the call takers, the dispatchers, the supervisors, as well as the responders, what is getting in their way, be it in prepared or outside of prepared too. And then from there, what we end up doing is like form a hypothesis, if you will, of what a possible solution could be that is technology rich and forward thinking. And then from there, we start doing what we call discovery, where we will like talk to not only our end users who are actively using prepared, but actually like talk to people who have never heard of prepared. And purely, this is not a sales conversation. This is purely like research and development, where we try to understand what is the workflow, what are the outcomes here, why do you all do these specific things, just like trying to deeply get into the minds of the user over there. And then from there, formulate a solution. And our ultimate objective is we want to build a solution that is so valuable for these people that we've just spoken to, that it fundamentally changes their workflow for the better, that it causes them a lot of delight, and it causes them a lot of joy, and it brings a lot of peace of mind as it relates to their job. And that has always been our objective there. And so once we formulate a solution, we will start to actively work with these partners who we've identified could value the solution pretty heavily. Build that solution working with them, getting their feedback, both their call takers, their dispatchers, people higher up, incorporating that into the development process, and then having a bias towards action. We always want to like ship fast, and we want to ship good product features quickly, working with these partners here. And we don't want to be the company that says, oh, that's great, it'll be there in like 18 months from now. We want to have the same bias towards action that our dispatchers and our call takers have as part of their job every day. So that's always been our philosophy as well, is like learn from the market quickly, iterate on the possible solution, and test if the solution actually makes sense in the workflow. And like you'll learn very early on, if you do this process right, that hey, you're fundamentally thinking about the problem incorrectly, or you might be thinking about the problem correctly, but the solution is way off. And it's a very iterative process, and we're very fortunate to have public safety partners in our PSAPs who truly believe in our mission and truly enjoy working with us as we ship some of these capabilities.
Now, has a lot of this also come from the fact of a lot of you guys actually going out to dispatch centers, visiting them, see how they do certain things? Has that kind of informed you on your perspectives and how you build a lot of these services, but also some of the stuff that we're going to be seeing at the New Horizons event?
Yeah, absolutely. Like there's a huge part of our company is let's say our sales team, our customer success team, our support teams. They're all distributed in different regions where Prepared exists in. And every week there are people actually going to the sites, learning from the customers, seeing how they're using the product, and like bringing that back to the R&D team. In addition to this, we make it a point to go to as many national conferences as we can. And in addition, every quarter, the product team, alongside the engineers, try to visit multiple centers. Just in the next couple of weeks, we'll have all of our engineering and product teams visit a trusted center of ours on the East Coast as well, just to like learn how they're using our product, but also just learn about some new problems that we want to solve for them. And in a lot of ways, this bias towards action fuels us to like get front and center, get inside the PSAP, and get ahead of that problem as quickly as possible, and learn as much as we can. So across the entire company, customer success, they're constantly educating customers. They're constantly talking to customers every week and trying to educate them on how to use the product, what are some new challenges they're facing, both in the product as well as outside of the product. And all those insights are flowing back into the product team. Our sales team is talking to multiple prospects, driving to them constantly, and like feeding those insights back to us. And then from an R&D side, we make it an active point to visit centers in order to learn more deeply about some of the problems we've identified that we want to solve for them.
So as we go into the wrap up of this round, which has been awesome to have you guys on, answer all these questions, give this sneak peek, but a little more of a sneak peek into your event that's coming up on the 20th. The question here is, what should the audience be excited about? And also, what are you guys excited about? So the two-part there. What should the audience be excited about? Like, what can you kind of sneak out there a little bit? But also, what are you guys personally excited about to have people join you for this event in general?
Yeah, I mean, a part of me wants to like say, hey, like you should join this webinar to like learn more, because it truly working for public safety truly brings me a lot of excitement. And regardless of the features we launch, like in general, I consider myself very privileged for to be able to innovate in this industry. Now, specific to this webinar, at a high level, we believe Prepared is accelerating towards solving challenges as it relates to handling non-English calls, and we have a pretty interesting way that we are like trying to pioneer to help solve this challenge effectively. And the other thing that we're pretty excited about is doing everything we can to like allow the dispatcher and the call taker to focus on the human side of things by reducing some of the manual effort it would require to identify key piece of information in the call itself. And we're pretty excited about some of the summarization pieces there that we're going to be showing. I'll leave it at that for now.
Awesome. What about you, Josh?
I will mostly just agree with what Keish said. My thoughts, I guess, to add a somewhat unique spin, as part of the kind of the New Horizons angle of it and the focus of that, I think it speaks to us really wanting to charge head first and lead the way in conversations around AI and 911. And I hope that people come to that event. They're not just going to learn about features, not just going to hear from PSAPs, not just going to learn about us, but they're going to hear conversation about AI in this space and the thoughtful introduction of AI and what we believe it can do and how it can make a positive impact on individuals, on communities, on PSAPs, and on the industry as a whole. And I think that's my goal. That's why it's the theme of the event. That's why we want to talk about it and we want to be at the front of that conversation. So that's what I'm excited for. I think it hopefully charts a path for us to really move that conversation to the forefront of the space and be at the forefront of that conversation. So that's what I'm stoked for.
I think for myself, just listening to the both of you throughout this entire broadcast, some of the questions that I've seen and everything between everything that you guys have said today, that we talked about today, and what's going to be mentioned in the webinar as well for the New Horizons event, is one of the other things that can be brought up is peace of mind. Because I think that's a big thing that you guys have answered today, and probably a lot of what will be some of the questions that'll probably come out during that webinar. If you guys are taking questions, of course, and some of the stuff that you're answering also is that peace of mind that people know that, one, they're not going to be replaced, as we've been talking. Some of the misconceptions that come with AI and everything. For me, I think that would be one of the biggest pieces, is to know that going into this, again, between both this conversation and what'll be coming up, is that that basic need for peace of mind and answering the questions and you guys being open. So there you have it. It's been awesome to have you guys on. This has been good, man.
Thanks so much for having us, Ricardo. We always appreciate it. It was a pleasure. And as we mentioned, in case you've mentioned, feedback and questions are what we run on and what we sustain on as a company. We want it all. Please bring it all to us, prepared911.com. And you can go to the contact page, submit any questions that you have. I'll put my email out there, joshk@prepared911.com. Shoot me an email. If you have questions, I'll forward it to the right person or answer it myself. So I really, really appreciate it. And don't forget to join us on June 20th at New Horizons.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you both once again, and I'll be right back here with the both of you in just one moment. And for those who've been watching, thank you very, very much for watching, for listening, and when you watch on demand, and also for those on Instagram and everyone who are submitting questions and everything as we were going through this, the comments. This has been an excellent round, and this was round 40 of the Dispatchers Roundtable. And if you have any comments, questions, or you ever have a topic that you want to have on the Dispatchers Roundtable, or if you ever want to be a guest as a panelist on the Dispatchers Roundtable, or a guest in the flagship show Within the Trenches podcast, you can send us an email, and that's going to be wttpodcast@gmail.com. Once again, that is William Tom, yes, I win in phonetics, podcast@gmail.com. But the easiest way to do all of this is to simply go to the I went this way, right there you go. The link down in the bottom left-hand corner of the screen, and that's going to be links.co/WTT podcast. And once again, that is links with HorAIzons.co/WTT podcast, and you'll find everything there. You'll find my email, social media, where to follow, where to listen to the latest episode Within the Trenches podcast, where to purchase Imagine Listening, pre-order book number 2 that comes out this August 4th, 2024. But also, virtual events, Dispatch podcast merchandise, all of that information can be found there. That is links.co/WTT podcast. This live broadcast has been sponsored by InDigital as well as Prepared, and a big shout out as always to subscribers of the podcast and Within the Trenches media. This can be seen on Facebook, LinkedIn Live, YouTube, X, as well as Instagram. And then for the flagship show, you can listen 24/7 on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, your favorite podcasting app, and withinthetrenches.net. Make sure to hit that link, register for New Horizons, and check out all the good stuff that's going to be coming from that webinar event and more from Prepared. And we'll see you all in the next one. Have a good one, everybody.